didn't even have our JSON level files yet.
I'm recording now.
Oh no, they know we don't have, or they're gonna know that we have JSON files.
Oh man, the secret's out.
Shit.
Secret's out. We've been it was Jason all along.
Jason's a dick.
He is. He's had to go missing.
JSON's pretty sweet.
Heck yeah.
All right.
I
Yeah,
don't even know what JSON is.
It is a data language, kind of like XML.
Okay.
Not quite as rigid. It's pretty. I totally can't remember what it stands for, but it's a data language that a whole bunch of people use. It's a fairly standard one now. It's human readable, which is nice.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that I understand. Once you said it's like XML, I was like, oh, okay, I got it. That's my reference point right there.
Yeah, I figured. All right, let's podcast for reals.
Going down for real.
Extreme podcasting.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of How to Build a Game Studio. I am Trevor Oz, and I'm joined today by Kent Gambill.
Hello. I didn't get an extraordinary, even though I'm the only person that's here.
Well, I'm the only extraordinary person here, so
this is bullshit. Stop doing these. You're a bad man, Trevor.
Hey, that's how the show goes, man. We can't let your ego get too high.
I need some ego. Love my ego.
No. You will be power hungry.
I'm gonna make you run the numbers.
The numbers will be run. You won't be happy about them. You'll start flipping tables. It'll be a whole thing.
I got a table. It's here.
And you'll flip it.
Where is it? I thought it was here. There's a table somewhere in this basement that I have not yet unpacked.
One generally doesn't pack a table.
I think we packed this one because we took the legs off.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So it's a destructible table.
Yes. I guess it's not packed per se. It is disassembled.
I see. Okay. So it's not like you put it in a box somewhere and it's just, with some charcuterie somewhere.
That is a great word.
I know. That's why I wanted to use it.
Is that what
word of the day?
This whole podcast was set up to do that?
It was. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Yeah.
We'll be back in 1 week from the time you're listening to this. So I was trying to think of topics to do, and I was thinking you're coming home soon.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we talk a little bit about the remote aspect of what we're doing currently and how we'll actually get to get together and work together in a singular place again here in about a month's time. So for you, what has it been like? Because you're doing the lion's share of the work on the actual game. So how is it working remotely for you?
Overall, it's not too bad. I thought it was going to be far more difficult, kind of, when we first started planning this out than it has been. Things like Teams or SharePoint or, all the kind of team collaboration suite that we're using has definitely made things a little easier in that respect. The major problem, or I don't want to say problem because it's only more of an inconvenience, but the biggest issue that I've faced is actually the time difference as opposed to actually not being in the same room with you guys.
Right.
And just you guys start work earlier than I do. I'm probably not even awake yet. And I work later than you guys do because of the 3-hour time difference. And it's just sometimes if I need something or if you guys need something from me on my end, there's definitely kind of a delay between the two. So that has probably been the biggest difficulty. And then the occasional issue with during the move when we didn't have internet yet, or when your power got knocked out for 30 hours.
Oh my god.
We've had a lot of like, it seems like we're kind of cursed right now. We're having a lot of
Yeah.
stupid crap like that happen to us. Between that, I think Jack's having blue screen on his PC, just like a lot of those types of issues, which would be definitely would be easier to work around were we sitting in the same room. Um, but yeah, overall, it's not been as bad. And for the audience who don't know this, we've been trying to make sure we have at least once a year, twice a year, something like that. I'll fly back to my parents' house in Ohio, and where most of the team still is, and we bring Moody in as well for usually about a week, and then that way we have kind of that time to do anything that really would benefit from having us in the same room. And good examples of that would be like pipeline work. So, and a great example is some of the art and animation, and I can't really get too much more specific without revealing anything, but art stuff that Moody is doing. We're going to be working on just kind of our pipeline and making it easier to get that from kind of his inception of starting it into the final display of it in the game. So that is a lot easier to do when we're together because, I can do something to the pipeline, do something to one of our tools, and just immediately have him test it there, and we can kind of both directly see the result. Versus, like gameplay features, things like that I do kind of more in a bubble or that don't need kind of direct access from anyone else. Doesn't really matter as much that we work remotely. So
Yeah, because right now, for people that don't know, like, so if you're working on something, Moody could be over here on the East Coast, possibly doing his other job, possibly having, doing anything else that might take his time away, like a family thing or something like that. And you're 3 hours of a difference. So you put something out, and for him to test it, you might not be able to see results till the next day.
exactly. And it's definitely not as bad as like in the past when I've worked West Coast to UK, for example. Like those
Mm.
can really be some big time differences. So, it's basically a day in between. Um, but 3 hours does matter. Um, but I think if you plan it correctly and make sure kind of the split of work is done in a way in which there's no need for kind of direct collaboration, it's not
Mm.
as much of a hindrance as people would think. And it's something that I really think would benefit a lot of people, the ability to work remotely more often in at least in tech-based jobs. Um, it'd be nice to be able to work for bigger companies without having to live in, you know, the horrible cities like LA. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to think too. The cost of living is just so high in a city
oh yeah,
compared to like here, because I mean, just in the townhouse that I'm living in Ohio, which is on the eastern Ohio, pretty close to Pittsburgh, but still like 45 minutes away. Um, we're paying $600 a month.
that is so little
Right. So what?
compared to LA, Seattle, like any of those types of cities.
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day. It's a huge difference.
Yep.
And that difference could be between you eating or not.
Yeah,
um, so
yeah,
I think having being able to do it remotely is a good option for anybody.
yeah. Agreed. And like we were saying earlier, like having working remotely generally, but making sure that you are in either in office or we don't technically have an office, but basically together with the group
You're
enough for
available.
whatever you're
Yeah.
doing. then yeah, I don't.
You have an availability. You have a set time where if something needs done, that's when it happens, and we all know, we know that time, or at least you know that time,
Yeah,
so that if something happens and you're like, "Hey, can you do this?" Like, we're there.
yeah. I mean, that's like the other kind of thing is like you have to make sure you're responsive. Like if I text you guys or you text me, outside of like Teams or work hours or whatever, it's not like you're going to ignore me because you're not on work hours. It's everyone is pretty accessible to everyone else, and that really helps out the overall kind of remote process.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'm usually always available. If and if something comes up, I'm just like, okay, yeah, and I usually just do it right away because that's how I work because I'm crazy like that. Um, and if I don't do it immediately, then I'll forget about it. So,
You are crazy.
but it's just one of those things. It's like it's almost like an OCD thing where if you're just like, this needs done, blah blah blah, like, and it's something like for instance, it's a mistake on the website that I overlooked, and then I'll be like, okay, I need to fix that now. It's not because it's like an emergency and has to be fixed like right that moment. It's just more like an OCD thing, like oh, that's wrong, I need to fix it.
Mm, whatever. It's that typo on the website is going to sink the company immediately.
It's not, but like I just can't if I know it's there, I can't not fix it.
That's me right now. I'm podcasting, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about this stupid build issue I was discussing with you right before.
Yeah, so you're getting an error with this build and you're like, I need to fix this, but Trevor is forcing me to talk
Yep.
about this damn studio on a podcast.
What a jerk.
I know. What the heck? Um so we're working remotely. We're using Teams. We're using the Microsoft infrastructure Office. Why did you choose Microsoft?
Honestly, it was just like, I mean, the main thing was it kind of started with Outlook and setting up an Exchange server and Azure, and then it just kind of made sense to use the full Microsoft suite instead of kind of cherry picking the pieces we wanted. Um, it's what I've used forever. I definitely like Outlook more than almost any other email kind of service. I did a lot of research for our backend servers, whether I wanted to use like Amazon AWS or I wanted to use Azure. And it was very convenient that I was able to basically bundle everything that we would need together under kind of the one, I think it's the Office 365 service. So that's just, it really is convenience. And like, we get pretty much everything we need out of it. I think the only thing we're using that's kind of external to that experience is Perforce for our code depot. But everything else is pretty much fallen under that Office 365 umbrella, and it gives us what we need. So that's been really helpful. Um, Again, just to be able to link up, like we use Teams for kind of our chat communication services, but it's so easy if we upload things, all of a sudden it's also in SharePoint, right? So we can just be in doing something with our SharePoint where like our design documents live, and then cool, that thing that somebody posted just in a comment over here on Teams is available to us in SharePoint. So the kind of interconnectivity between all of the applications has been pretty helpful in that respect. And it's a great package specifically for that reason.
Yeah, and we pretty much use it for everything at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We're even using it to podcast. So
Oh, that's true.
so what we do is Teams allows you to record calls. So we just set up a meeting and then we record it, and then I extract the audio from the video. It's essentially how we do that. So,
Yeah.
except when I have guests on, then I record Skype. But
I was curious about that actually, how you did that. But
so for that, I use Open Broadcast software, so OBS. Same stuff you would use to stream a game on your PC. So I just open that up. I have it set to record the Skype window, but it doesn't actually it doesn't have anything to record because I don't do it on video. So it just records the audio. So it's basically just a black video with the audio in the background, and it'll record both channels. So
gotcha.
so
Learn something new.
yeah, it was just an easy way. The software I used to use for podcasting with Skype uh, is outdated and no longer works with the current Skype, which was a drag because I really liked it. But and it worked for a long time. So I mean, I definitely got my $30 I think that I paid for it like back in like 2013 or so.
All
Out
right,
of it.
not too bad.
So it's not like I spent $200 on this software that is no longer working. It was it was 35 bucks. And it lasted 5 or 6 years. So it can't go wrong with that.
hmm
That's for sure. Um, so what's it like for you? Because you left home a long time ago. So what's it like for you to come back every year?
I mean, honestly, I don't know if this will ever change, but like home for me will always be my parents' house in Wintersville. Um, like you said, I haven't lived there for when did I leave? 2006?
About a decade ago now.
Yeah, I think it was 2006. It was like towards the end of 2006 because I think I went to Full Sail 2006 to 2008. So yeah, what 13 years
Yeah.
roughly. Um, and still, whenever I don't say I'm going to my parents' house or I don't say I'm going to Ohio. I say I'm going home. Um, so for me, it's still home, and I think it's probably most small towns are like this, but it's nice that not a whole lot has changed. Um, so it is still that feeling of kind of coming home, like the fact that a lot of friends still either live in the area or close enough to the area that they can come down like for the weekend, like just a little road trip down. Um, so it is very much that sensation of like returning home. It's not like I'm visiting someplace. It's I'm actually returning home. Um, prior to the company being made, it was always just kind of a nice social thing to see you guys, to see family, to, almost all of my close friends still live there. Um, so it's always a really fun time. And now that the company started, it's also very helpful and very kind of a productive time when I can get there and the team comes over and we do our indie thing of working down in the basement, which I've continued that trend. My home office is now in my basement as well, so a huge majority of this game is being done in basements.
I mean, honestly, a whole majority of the we can just say the story was built in that basement. So
That's also true. So a lot of basement in here, all
and
about them basements.
well, I mean, your parents' house. I mean, that's where we all gathered to play the tabletop game, and that's where we gathered for the first time as a studio,
hmm
and formed the studio, and created the studio. So I mean, there's a lot of resonance and memories, and it's all about us, almost like recreating in a way, but like making something new at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun to do the kind of when we were planning out the overarching story of the whole game. I don't think we talked about this on the podcast previously, so forgive me if we already did talk about this, listeners. But basically, we came up with our kind of, I don't know, let's say 10 or 12 or whatever, like the major kind of plot points from the beginning to the end of the section of the story we wanted to tell, of like kind of the important bits and like what did happen, what wasn't really important, we didn't need to include. And then from there, to kind of fill up the middle parts, like in between the kind of key events, um, was a really enjoyable experience of like everyone kind of remembered different events or different bits and pieces, or even remembered the same event but in a different way. And it was like a really unique way of kind of getting the story that we created so long ago, basically rebuilding that story, because many years have passed, but being able to really recreate at least a majority of it. I mean, maybe we forgot a thing here or there, but we definitely got the bulk of it, all the major events, all the major characters. And then we had that, and then kind of the final step of taking that, either changing, tweaking, cutting, or adding little bits and bobs to rework it so it made more sense in a video game aspect. I thought that was a really cool experience, and it was way more interactive and enjoyable than kind of the standard game design experience that I've had. Um, and hopefully people agree that, I mean, I think it made a better story. Like
Yeah, I
the
do.
amount of collaboration we do, I think is much better than if a designer did it. So hopefully when we get it out there, people will agree.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was just it was like pulling out a puzzle and putting it together with a group of friends.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Because
good analogy.
we were all looking at different pieces. We all have different skill sets. We all have different memories. And it was putting the pieces together, and it was almost literally like putting them together because we had post-its with plot points,
Yeah.
and like literally just had them on a wall and like moving them around and making sure that this fit here and like what goes in between this and in between that. And I mean, it was such a cool, unique process that like I've never been a part of either. That it was there was just nothing like it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, it's not even that I have not been part of game design experiences before. It's just that's not, uh, well, I don't want to say entirely, because I think some indie studios do this. And like, for example, when I worked at Firehose Games, I always really appreciated that when uh, we were doing design, it wasn't just the designers doing the design.
mhm.
Everyone got their say, right? Like everyone got feedback. And a lot of times the designers kind of, would really take the feedback and morph it into something that made more sense with the game, which of course we did that too. But like a lot of other times in studios you work, it's the designers go off kind of in a bubble and do their thing, and then they bring it out, and then you give feedback, and then they kind of go back into the bubble again and do it, which makes sense for some games. Probably doesn't make sense for others, but it's just doing this kind of collaborative design. I definitely prefer doing it that way, because there's been a lot of stuff that I either hadn't thought of, that I had overlooked, or that made
Mhm.
sense to me that didn't make sense to other people. So I think what we finally had will really shine to a large number of people versus just like me. If I was like
Just like us.
yeah, like if we were the only, like if I was the only person who did design on it, right? Like if we
Hmm.
had done that, then I would I would get everything. But I mean, even the other tabletop players would have probably been like, this doesn't really make any sense, or this isn't how it
Yeah.
happened. So yeah, I really liked our design process, and I personally think it's been amazing. Like we talked about it several times, but bouncing ideas off Moody, for example, and getting a total outsider's perspective on things
Yeah.
was
That,
great.
yeah, that's what I was going to bring up next was just having Moody there who had never played any sort of tabletop, like no D&D, no nothing. To him just like coming in there and trying, and basically you like pitching the story,
Yeah.
and then him just like, well, why is this, why is that, asking questions. um in a way, like those questions also jogged your memory on certain events, and informed that more. But it helped get his perspective too, because he has a unique perspective
Hmm.
on everything. And people will be able to see that once we actually get around to showing his art.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited for that. Sometime in the future,
Eventually.
theoretically, we can show off, we can announce the game.
But
Oh,
yeah,
that's a fun balancing act, as all the listeners, if you listen to Lawrence podcast, you two touched really well on that, of like the balance of when to show it off, like how long is too long to lose interest. So we're constantly wrestling with that.
yeah, we're pretty much like always talking about it. And like, as someone who's the person that whose job it is to put that stuff out there, I'm just like, I want to do it now. But that's just because like I want stuff to do, and I'm excited. Like I see this stuff, and I'm just like, I'm so excited to be like, oh my god, I want to show people what we're doing. Like,
You gotta wait, Trevor.
I know,
I'll spray
but
you with a bottle of water.
um, but I mean, it's just it's so cool, and just, oh man, some of the stuff we're doing is like just really, really awesome. And the way Moody interprets the characters, I mean, we've said this 1,000 times, but it's completely different from the way that, like, I know my mind works, and I know probably yours too.
Yeah, definitely. Several of the characters are just like, wow, I didn't expect that. That looks awesome. Sweet.
Yeah, and it just goes to show like how we each have different thoughts and different something different to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Because even like Boo, where he is really focusing on a lot of the sound effects and stuff like that, and what he's doing, and that's like kind of his vision for it. And it's interesting, where we all see things, because we all see things in different ways, but I think we have a good flow with each other to be able to talk out, our ideas, and kind of come to a consensus of what we all think is best.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm really curious what happens once. We haven't really come across it yet, but what happens when we get to a point where it's like we can't agree on an idea?
Yeah, because we haven't actually had that happen. Um,
Deathmatch? Probably deathmatch.
Probably, yeah, or we'll play like Halo or something. But
Halo deathmatch.
Halo obviously deathmatch. I mean,
So yeah, in one way or another, it will have to be a deathmatch.
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and may the best man win.
They can
Prob-
win. That's what I think.
or we'll just play some Death Row.
I love Death Row.
Man, I really want somebody to remake that game. Bring
Yeah.
it back. Bring it back, Ubisoft. Come on, Yves
Fingers crossed.
Guillemot. I know you're listening. I know.
Probably not, though. Honestly,
Probably not.
I would be very surprised.
I just get an email tomorrow. Hey, we're bringing back the. No.
Although that said, we did have a huge amount of interest in France when we announced the studio originally. If you
Yeah.
remember that.
Oddly enough, like I was very surprised that some of just the areas that once we had our studio announcement that just like picked up on the news of that.
Yeah.
So
I honestly I didn't expect a whole lot aside from like US and UK, right? Like
yeah.
most of the kind of people that we knew were in that area or any contacts we had. But yeah, France was definitely one I remember being like a surprising number of articles coming out, especially for us having no contacts there whatsoever. And I think a couple of German articles I remember as well.
There was some German. I know there was at least, I think, I want to say one or two Greek articles, perhaps.
Wow.
Um, maybe an Italian article too. Like it got some play in different spots in Europe for sure.
Yeah, that's
So
really cool.
yeah, so it's really weird being a new studio, having your like insular bubble, and then you put a little bit of information out there and seeing who bites, and like it's interesting to see the people that bite aren't always necessarily who you expect.
Yeah, that's true. We definitely had some like news sites or podcast or like definitely a large number of just different outlets that we kind of expected to pick up that story that did not, and then we had some totally unexpected uh, people pick us up, which was great. And actually, I made several contacts and friends through that too, so that's been really nice.
Yeah, it's been a really cool process being a new studio early on. Essentially trying to get ourselves out there with very little information about what we're working on.
Yeah,
So
that's true. It's
so
that's even a new experience for me. Like, we've mentioned it before, but I've been doing games for quite a while, but I've never been with a studio from the beginning, let alone, like our own studio. So it's been a really unique experience to see that happen versus, I've always come into an established space before.
yeah, because I mean you worked for a big studio before,
Hmm.
so and for a long time.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, I was at most of the studios that I've worked at for big chunks of time, like probably averaging about 5 years. I think I was only with Firehose for maybe a year, maybe two, but that's because we moved out of the area.
Yeah,
But yeah, generally I tend to stick with a studio for quite a while, until probably until we move. I guess usually
yeah,
is what
pretty
happens.
much. Yeah, until life changes. Because I know
Exactly.
a few times, pretty much your moves have been predicated on your wife changing. You know, she went to school for a while and then she got work and stuff. So
Yeah, it's all Genevieve's fault.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Uh,
in your face,
we
Genevieve.
we can say that because she listens.
She does. I know she's gonna hear this, and I'm gonna get in trouble. She's probably gonna come in the other room and I'm gonna forget about this, and then when this launches, she's gonna come in the other room and smack me or something. And I'm like, what did I do?
You know what you did.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I can't blame her. I mean, she basically pushed a lot of things, and we would definitely not be where we currently are without her. So,
oh, definitely
thanks,
not.
thanks to her.
No, and a big thanks to her for because she put me in contact with Carl
Hmm.
from Ghostly Bear Games to talk to him. And she's been helping me out with a couple others that possibly may be on in the future.
Great.
Um, so I think that's really awesome of her.
Not to
So
mention the fact that she's allowing me to actually pursue this, where I'm bringing in $0 to our household right now. So
right,
that's pretty amazing.
yeah. So you're not the only one making a sacrifice. She is as well. So
Mhm.
for that, thank you, Genevieve.
Yeah, special thanks. Now we don't have to put it in the game. In your face.
And that's your second smack right there.
Just gonna get my ass kicked.
So when you go home, does any of it just feel weird being back?
Um, Not really. I mean, for the most part, I feel like I'm able to just kind of jump back in.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a few instances of things I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like Kroger's is no longer open 24 hours.
Yeah, what
That
the
blew
hell,
my
Kroger?
mind. But I mean, it's always just little stuff like that. It's not like I feel it. I think the most like weird, I guess, that I felt is if I run into someone like that I wasn't really close with,
Yeah.
but like someone I knew in high school or something like that, and just talking to them is kind of the more unusual. But yeah, I mean, considering how long I spent there, how long, how much just the number of hours we all spent together at the house, and the fact that I've been home almost every year, once a year since I've left. I think there was 1 or 2 years I did not come home for Christmas, but generally I've been home.
Yeah, you've done a pretty good job of coming home. So
Yeah. So yeah, no, it doesn't really feel weird or anything. I think if my parents ever sell their house and like move and I go home and don't go to that house, that's when it would really feel strange to me.
yeah,
But
I was going to ask you that.
the fact that it's still, at Kent's house, has really kind of kept things feeling normal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't even know where to go from here.
There's nowhere. It's
There's
over.
nowhere. It's over. All right, guys. Bye.
Goodbye forever. That's the end of the podcast.
Yeah, that's it. See ya.
What
Get
is this,
out.
like 19 or something, right? 18? 7? I can't remember.
Wait, what? Oh, this is
The episode number.
episode 16?
16?
16 maybe?
It's hard because we record these and then release them, and once they're released, they kind of have their number, but
Yeah, so it's for a long time, oddly enough, like my numbering was off like every single week. So
oh
I
really?
would well, from what I like when I would put numbers into the actual like podcast thing, like to set up the meeting in Teams, I would put like a
Oh.
podcast number, and it was usually like off by like a number or two. So what the crazy thing would be like, I would go into Microsoft has this basically it's a social media, it's like YouTube but just like internal for your company site that all the videos get uploaded to. So I would go into Stream, which is what this service is, and go in there and like look and be like, oh, this is the latest one, but it would be like episode like 7, but it would really be like episode like 5.
Uh,
So for the longest time, like it's actually like pretty accurate now, but for the longest time it was off. So I would literally have to look at the website to see what episode we were on, so make sure I got it right.
I'll be honest, I don't even like the Teams meetings. I look at the time and I look at like the description for, what that week is going to be about. I never actually look at the number. The numbers, I just look like I listen to them on Spotify. And that's when I see the numbers. So I had no idea that even happened.
Yeah, so like I think at a certain point too, like I had like literally an edited episode of like say episode 9, and then I downloaded an episode 9. So like it was super confusing for a minute while I was trying to figure out which one I was supposed to edit and which one was the real one. And
Well, I'm
but
glad
I
we're
fixed that eventually. So
glad we're properly numbered now.
yeah, so I mean it's always been like, to the audience, it's always been numbered properly and seen properly, but behind the scenes it's a mess. So it's
I think
very
that's
much
game development in a nutshell.
pretty much it's my life in a nutshell, Kent, is like behind the scenes I'm a mess, but like the what I throw out front facing seems great. So
Pretend to know what you're doing, man. Fake it till you make it.
pretty much, I mean that's what I do. That's what I mean I like I know what I'm doing most of the time, but like, man, it's sometimes I'm just like I don't know what to do, and then
Hey, man,
like
we taught you about escrow, all right? I think
that's
that was
true.
on this podcast.
I know about escrow because of this podcast.
There we go. We're educational.
I can buy a house now.
It's
Well,
true.
I don't have good credit, so I can't really go buy a house now, but I know how to do it
There you
once I
go.
get to that point. So, um, so that's how it goes. But yeah, just like with this podcast, like we didn't have a topic prepared.
That's true. We came in very late, last minute.
Yeah, because we had some scheduling. I mean, if we want to talk about cursed projects, so um, this week's been one of those weeks where it's like we were supposed to record it on Monday. Kent Kent's power was out,
Hmm.
so it's like and nobody else could make it. So it was like one of those things like okay. And then yesterday, I think you had some trouble with your dog, um, to which you
Yeah,
couldn't get on, and it was just like okay
yeah. I
then.
was cleaning poop all day yesterday, so thanks for that, Dova.
So then I was just like, all right, we'll just move it on the calendar. So it's pretty much just like reschedule day. Um, to where we get now, and yeah, I just was like, I don't know what I want to talk about.
Yeah,
Um,
it's tough because I know we have that kind of list, but like a lot of the topics are based on who shows up or who is able to make it for that given week, like based on their either work schedule or personal
yeah,
schedule.
right, and I mean, full disclosure, we have some good ideas for topics. Like we want to have like probably Genevieve on at some point, um, and maybe even Jack's girlfriend Mel to talk about what it's like living with a game developer at that point. But that's something that we have to schedule around like four or five different people's schedules to figure out. So it's a lot of like legwork, like when we actually want to do that. So
Maybe
it's
we should just record them individually and then use the magic and put them together.
use the magic of editing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll take forever.
We can just I'll just do Genevieve's voice and I'll pretend because I'm sure I could sound exactly like my wife.
Yeah, and
And Jack
we'll
could
just
do
get Mel.
Mel and we're good.
Yeah, I think that's probably the worst idea you've ever had. As far
I
as
have had
stupid,
worse ideas than that.
I don't know, man. That's a pretty up there.
I don't know. I'd have to think. Operation Woodchuck, maybe.
It's a pretty ridiculous one.
We lost Jack in the woods.
We did. No one's gonna understand anything about that.
Nope. Maybe one day I'll talk about Operation Woodchuck. But
One
until
day
then, it's just going to be a teaser.
you'll learn the tale of Operation Chuck.
We can do a podcast on all the dumb crap we used to do when we were, young adults instead of
We
old adults.
we did a lot of dumb crap. Like man, I was just thinking the other day because it came up during D&D on Saturday when I was playing. Was we were talking about Ted Wood's graduation party,
Oh
and
yeah, it was
we
awesome.
all went like we're all like between the ages of 18 and like 21, and we all went to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, man, that was awesome.
It was
I
awesome though.
I do remember getting dirty looks,
Oh yeah,
but I mean, as a soon-to-be parent, I guess I totally understand that because I'm sure everyone thought we were just kind of like being there ironically or like
yeah,
jerk teenagers, but we just wanted to play the games and like eat the pizza. So
yeah. Like we were there for the arcade experience.
yeah,
So
I don't
yeah,
think there was like Dave and Buster's as much at least in that area at the time.
no, I don't think that was. I don't think that was an option at the time. Um, because I know now there's one up in Pittsburgh, but yeah, I don't know if that was there at the time that we went because that was
Yeah, I
so
can't
long ago.
remember. But yeah, we had fun.
Yeah, it was great. I
Play.
remember I remember Jambo Safari being a
I
big
was
hit.
trying to think of the name. I was gonna say the jungle game where you trap a bunch of random animals.
The
Jambo Safari was awesome.
Sega Classic
Hmm.
Jambo Safari. So yeah. With that, thank you, Chuck E. Cheese.
Yep, love
Uh,
Chuck E. Cheese.
we had a great time some 12 years ago, 13 years ago at your establishment. So never change. Never change. Um, I think that wraps us up.
Yeah, we kind of went off topic a little bit, so I think we're
Yeah.
good. That's usually the sign.
Yeah, that's usually a good indicator. So thanks for being on this week, Kat.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just go back and fix the build now.
Yeah, now you can fix the build. I can then finally test out this sweet game that's really sweet and super awesome, and that everybody should buy when it comes out. And for now, if you want to support us, just be sure to check out the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff on iTunes. If you give us 5-star reviews on iTunes, more people can listen to us. If we notice those reviews, we will maybe read them on the podcast. If you have any questions, or if you're a game dev and would like to be on the show, you can contact us at social media at winterborngames.com. We'd love to have you on, or we would love to hear your questions about us, and we will answer the ones that we're able to answer at this moment. And that would be really cool. So if you have any of those, we would implore you to send us an email. And again, follow us at Winterborn Games wherever social media takes you. Literally every social media platform that you can think of, I've probably registered at Winterborn Games at. So, yeah, that's the way to get in touch with us. So thank you very much, and we'll be back next week.
Goodbye.